Club members, welcome. It's been a while. It's been 2 weeks, 3 really, but it'll seem like 2. I mean this sincerely. I really do think about you guys. We're dating and stuff, and I'm like, come on, man, just give me a little more attention. But I really do think about you guys. I do. I love what we're doing. I love what we're talking about, and it's pretty hip. And I don't have to buy you stuff. You know, like if we were dating, I'd have to buy you stuff or lie about buying. But no, I just come and talk to you. Welcome. By the way, 2,500 subscribers, Marky.
There we go.
You know what did it? It's the Fast Pass. I just want to point out that since we announced the Fast Pass, 20% of the United States of America has been, whatever it's called.
Vaccinated?
I'm like indoctrinated. Vaccinated and indoctrinated, all because of our Fast Pass. So our last post has 6,500 views. It's going great. Thank you. It's going to be fun. I love what we're doing. And on a less serious point, but just as important, I want to make clear that one of the things we've talked about on this show is white privilege. And I keep telling people I'm not opposed to white privilege primarily because multicultural privilege is coming and I want to use it. And so, but white privilege is also, it's a reality. And I think people just view it negatively, although it is negative, but it's also just a functional aspect of just a democracy. But there are also tragedies associated with white privilege. And some of those tragedies, we've seen them. They've been on display for the last 2 weeks. And the worst kind of white privilege tragedy is where white privilege has just gone too far.
Yeah.
And so this example, this deeply disturbing example of white privilege tragedy involves Andrew Cuomo. Andrew Cuomo is the great white liberal Democrat that people love to talk about how great he is. And it turns out Andrew Cuomo is not as smart as Donald Trump. I mean, think about this. Here's the truth. And again, you know, on this show, here's the reason we don't get into politics. And I'll just be direct. The difference between the Republican Party and the Democratic Party is zero. It's just zero. And so we can talk about Republicans this or Democrats this. My brother has one of the greatest lines ever. And he says, Bill and Hillary Clinton attended Trump's daughter's wedding. Now, if you are diametrically opposed, you don't attend each other's weddings. Republicans and Democratic parties are almost identical. They just are. And Donald Trump, at least, and he was a womanizer, and again, I don't care, it's between him and his wives, but one thing Donald Trump did do, when he was elected and he was in the most highly examined, looked at situation, he didn't continue to harass 24-year-old highly educated women. I mean, Cuomo was, literally, he was one of the most famous people in the world. And this dude, the whole time, is hitting on 24-year-old, 23-year-old, attractive, highly educated women. I mean, it is, I've been giggling because it is the quintessential white privilege moment because it's like, dude, you think these women are attracted to you because why? He's not even rich. You know, and there's no reason that these women are going to be particularly attracted to me. It's because it's white privilege and it's because it's just a tragedy. And Cuomo can't get it. And the problem he has is 2 parts. One is, and I think this is the most serious part, he failed to heed the advice of one of New York's most important philosophers, Chris Rock. When Chris Rock does the whole joke about you're too old to be in the club, you look around, you're too old to be in the club. Andrew Cuomo has failed to understand, dude, you're too old to be in that club. It's the same thing. He literally walks into a room. Andrew, he's 68, some crazy number. Nothing wrong with that. If you're 68, hit on 58-year-old chicks. Cool. I'm going to be that. I'm going to hit on 58-year-old. If you're gay, you hit on 58-year-old men. Do whatever you want. But you don't go from 68 to 24. You're too old to be in the club. And Andrew Cuomo walks in. He's got his little whatever it is they wore when he was young. And he's walking up to highly educated, very attractive women. And he thinks they're interested in him. He's like, and he has the same line each time. He's like, oh, so do you like older men? No, motherfucker, I don't like. And it's just like, that's it? That's your go-to line?
Yeah.
He failed to modify, man. It's, the problem that he really has is he thought that because he's in politics and there are young women, there are young men, he thought that because he was a governor, that they'd be really attracted to him. Because that's why they're young and they're idealistic, and that's why they're in politics. So if I walk in the room and say, hey, do you like older men? That they're going to want to sleep with me. Yeah. The problem is that's incorrect. It's incorrect. That premise is incorrect. I know I worked in politics for 12 years. I worked in politics, frankly, because there's free food, free booze, and some chicks dig it. That's all. Free food, and some chicks dig it. And that's all. That's why I'm in politics. I was there. You literally get to go and you go talk with people. You get drunk a lot and you get free. I was in college. I would get food that I had never seen. That's why I was in politics. Most young people, when they're in politics, it's for the booze and the food. It's not for the old 70-year-old politicians who want to walk up and rub their dicks on you. I mean, it's so crazy. It's creepy. You know what I mean? It's really gotten to the point. It's like, dude, what? No, not again. Six chicks. You got to give him credit though, man. That dude is, he's relentless. If it's number 6 and still no one's taking you up on the deal, he's like, oh shit.
You got to switch up the strategy at some point.
At some point. And
after 5. Like, come on, man.
Maybe this isn't working. Maybe this whole politics thing.
Give you 3.
That's fair. You get 3 strikes.
5,
it's late.
crazy.
All right, 6. And there's more coming.
Oh, for sure.
He's like, I don't know where this is all happening. What's craziest about it is, it's like, dude, surely you know that you should not be. You're on the news every single day. And it just, in his head, it never occurred. Maybe I should back off just a little, just modify your game, man. That's just. And here's the other crazy thing about it is I've done this. I've modded all people. You have to modify who you are. This is the absolute truth. People who know me will tell you that I've dated some of the most amazingly attractive women ever. It's the craziest shit. And as God is my witness, it all started when I was a freshman in high school, and there was this really pretty girl, I guess she was a freshman too, and she was really smart and really pretty, and she's like, no one ever asked me out. And I was sitting there, I was like, really? I like really smart chicks anyway, and I like really smart, really attractive. So my whole life, I've been attracted to really smart, really attractive women. It's because it's like me and nobody else. So it's like, hey, at some point they're like, shit, fine.
So yeah. That's the cheat code. The smart girls and the tall girls.
Yeah, that's another play.
No one goes.
That's
for them,
another play,
best.
And it's great. And what's even better is I live in LA. I like women of color. I might be one of the few dudes of color who likes women of color. So I like really smart, really attractive women of color. You modify. That's it. Cuomo's never modified, dude. It's just like and by the way, you're the governor and it's not working. Come on, man. You got to apply there's got to be a, cost benefit analysis. This works out sometimes. But it didn't. And what's worse is women are inherently forgiving of ugly dudes. I mean, they are. It always cracks me up. When I used to do comedy, I used to do this whole bit about it's great. You can just tell the ugly dude in the room with a really attractive wife or really good. He's just the happiest dude in the place. He's like, look, she loves me. Cuomo can't do that. I mean, it's just, I don't know. I've gotten carried away on this, haven't I?
No, I'm with you.
But it's just, I'm watching this thing going, really? Yeah. I mean, it's, aside from its creepy, just sexual harassment is kind of, unless you're Patrice O'Neill, when he does sexual harassment day at work. Unless you're Patrice O'Neill, it is creepy. It's like, especially if you're 40, he's 42 years older than these ladies. 42. there aren't many. I'm just going to go out on a limb. I'm not a female, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say 99.9% of female don't lay in bed and go, dude, I wish there was like a dude who's 43 years older than me rubbing his old penis on me. You know, it's just, it's just not in the mix.
Yeah, it's not like the morning after. They're like,
right.
But if he was older.
Yeah, I was really thinking about a 67-year-old guy.
Sorry.
No, doesn't happen.
I think it's one of those things that we can look at just as like, let's say we take like legal ramifications out of it, and we look at it, let's say that's my friend or something like that. You just got to switch up the strategy.
Right.
You're just messing it up.
Right. But if he were your friend, you'd be like, hey, motherfucker, chill the fuck out.
Let's bring that up to 30.
Or you'd be like, or it's like you're in a club, and over in part of the club, there's like this group of like 5 big dudes. And it's you and your friend, and the 5 big dudes have one really pretty young woman with them who's someone's sister. And your friend's like, I'm going to go over and try and fuck her. And you're like, dude, I don't think you should do that because she's with 5 big dudes. This is not a good idea. And no one says to Andrew Cuomo, hey, dude, come on, man. It's white privilege got to run amok. It's the tragedy of white privilege. That's because it's just like what I love is in his mind, it's never been, I don't, this is probably not going to work out. You know?
All
right.
All the swag.
He's just like, I got it.
It's going to work.
Right. It's like, dude, that game hasn't worked for you for 4 decades. Maybe when he is 35, maybe 45. But dude, it's just not. It's all right. This is, once again, we close the moral responsibility segment of our podcast. It's just been cracking me up. I've been watching and going, really? And what's nutty is like, and I have 2 daughters. I love my kids. And there is an element of, if you have daughters, you really are just like, you try to be less creepy at least. I think he has 2 daughters, and it's like, you are more than creepy. You're more creepy than you've ever been.
Yeah.
All right. That's all. That's all I'm going with. That's it. Now, how do I segue back into it? Oh, here's the reason we were gone for 2 weeks is my partner, Zach Miller, episode 10, 11. Zach and I have a marijuana business in Compton called Compton Chronic, and we have been in court against the city of Compton for 4 years. And it has been the craziest, nuttiest thing. In 2017, Zach and I said, let's get in the marijuana business, which everyone did. But the one thing we did is we said, let's do it legal. So we went out, we found the one city that we knew we can do it. We did everything right. Went and met with the Compton city attorney, said, by the way, your city ordinance doesn't work. So we're here and we're going to go to court. And they said, no, you don't have to do that. So 6 months later, they show up at our place, and it's great. I mean, it is cool. They show up, they have a fake warrant. They literally took a warrant and they signed by a sitting LA County Superior Court judge, and they hand it to us. They have all the police there and everything. The warrant is forged. It's literally forged. We're like, well, this isn't this. And they go in, they destroy it, take like $30,000 in cash, $150,000 in product. And we were completely legal. We have been fighting these dudes for 4 years. And so 3 months ago, when we're ready for our last trial, they go out, we need new lawyers. So they go out and get the 80th largest law firm in America. And we've been still kicking the crap out of them. And so in the last 2 weeks now, Compton is saying, oh, we've got to have a continuance where it made me laugh. For those of you who know, Compton, California it's not won many awards for caring about its citizenry. And their lawyers are saying, well, Compton's in the middle of fighting the coronavirus epidemic, and we shouldn't take them away from it. And so it's just been the craziest shit. And we're filing motions after motions. And fortunately, I'm a lawyer, and so I'm doing most of it. But what's crazy about it is, and it's part of one of the reasons that I did this podcast, and that is one thing I know about life and about the world is, one, if you're 67 and you're the governor, don't be creepy, creepier. But the other thing is that my stepfather, I've never met my biological father. My stepfather had a 6th grade education. He's my hero. He taught me how to work hard and how to try and don't give up. And one thing I've learned is that, man, life is hard for most people. It's hard to succeed. It's hard to give your family some type of life. It's hard to dream. And that doesn't mean that you can't succeed. And when we started this marijuana business, the whole premise was we're going to make a bunch of money. It's going to be great. And it's going to be fun. It has turned out to be just this extraordinary amount of work. And part of that is getting to this point has been that what Compton has tried to do is get away with just crushing our business. And it's funny because I've tried cases. I had some money in the bank, and I have a brother who's a lawyer. I have multiple lawyer friends who are great. And we have fought this to the end. And it has been extraordinarily difficult. And I think it's going to have a good result. But the end result is if it wasn't me who has a legal background and had several $100,000 in the bank, and my partner, and knowing all these people, they would have won. It would have been another situation where the government or people or corporations come in and crush regular people. And it has been fascinating to watch, in part because it's like we talked last week about just judges and the justice system being corrupt. The way courts ignore regular people is stunning. We fought this thing for 2 years until finally one day we actually hired another lawyer, and he came on, and Compton admitted, they're like, oh, by the way, because we're just getting ready to start trial, and they're supposed to bring the search warrant that they used. The problem with it didn't have what's called a file stamp. A file stamp is the date and time the petition, the legal filing, was filed. In California, every legal document must be filed with the clerk of the court. The reason for that is I know you'll find this hard to believe, but sometimes people lie and cheat, and they do it in courts too. And so when you file a document, you have to take it, if you're the police, if you're the government, anyone, you have to file it with a clerk. The clerk gets it, they put what's called a file stamp on it, and that's the day it was filed, the time it was filed, and that's how people know that this was submitted to the court. The problem was with what Compton used was an inspection warrant, which is different than a search warrant, but it's kind of the same thing, arguably. But it is the same thing in the context of it has to be filed with a court, and it has to be issued by a judge. And the reason is that you don't want the government going into your business saying, oh, I got this warrant, give me all your stuff. The problem they have is we're getting ready for trial on January 16th, and finally they said, yep, we're going to bring you the file stamp copy of that warrant that we used 18 months ago. We're bringing it. Got to court on January 16th. They're like, well, that whole, inspection warrant thing that we were bringing you, we don't have one. We don't have a conformed copy, meaning a copy that was filed with the clerk, that went to the judge's chamber, and the judge signed. So we're there on January 16th, 2019. Zach and I have been at this for 18 months, and the judge, for the first time, because we hired a lawyer, paid him thousands of dollars, and the judge says, I find it troubling that this inspection warrant isn't signed or isn't with a file stamp on it, and this is a problem. And we're sitting there, and I look over and find me and Zach are just sitting there. Finally, I'm like, I've had it. I said, we've been telling you this for 2 years, and you didn't listen. Well, I'm listening now, she says. And so the city attorney, a guy named Jose Paz, gets on the record, and he says, Judge, I can't explain to you why we don't have a conformed copy. He says, I agree that this creates the appearance that this is connected to a bribery ring working out of Compton City Hall, shaking down marijuana businesses. Compton city attorney says, I concede it creates that appearance, but I'm not saying it does, but I concede that it does. And so that was in January of 2019. Fast forward, and we're here again, and Compton's now saying, we need to do some discovery, and we need to do this. And at no point in time has a judge said, you know what, this is starting to be a problem that you guys won't produce this warrant that's signed by a superior court judge. It cannot be signed by a judge if it wasn't signed. In other words, the entire warrant is just a fraud. And the other part of what makes this also crazy, and I'm going off again, is Zach and I, when we started Compton Chronic, we said two things: going to be legal, and we're going to make it cool. We're going to make it cool. We had pictures. We had a mural of Cesar Chavez, of Malcolm X, of Sitting Bull, and these cool quotes. We had a hiring preference for single moms. We paid $15 an hour to start. We were the first marijuana business in America to advertise on the radio. We had our store, you could see directly into it. Every other dispensary, ours, you could look glass, look directly into it. We had people playing music inside. It was great because we were doing it differently. And so we're doing all of this. First, we did it all legal. And we're now just under this tremendous, just banging our head on the wall with judges not giving us our day in court, not saying, hey, this looks really bad. One of the main things Compton argued, they said, in LA, you guys will know this, there's what's called Prop D or pre-ICO. Pre-ICO are the gold standard of marijuana licenses. You can do anything you want because they came prior to Prop D being passed. Compton City Ordinance was a pre-ICO ordinance. And so we had a pre-ICO ordinance that said we absolutely got to do what we wanted. We met with Compton City Attorney, their city manager, and said, we're going to file an injunction because your ordinance is messed up and we get to go. And they said, don't worry about it. We'll tell you all you got to do. You guys are going to be Compton's only marijuana business. Yeah. We're rolling for 6 months. These guys show up. Compton City Attorney, his name's Craig Cornwell, who's just... I'll tell you about Craig Cornwell, but they show up, they hand Zach this inspection warrant. It's all in video, of course. And Zach's video got a cigarette hanging out of his mouth. He's like, yeah, this doesn't look right. And so by the time I get there, they've destroyed our store. They've taken everything. And I pull up, I'm like, what are you doing? And the sheriff says, well, your place is condemned because you don't have a certificate of occupancy. I said, there's a certificate of occupancy on the fucking wall is a certificate of occupancy, and I'll go get it. I go in to get it, and Compton City Attorney Craig Cornwell says they can't go in, and then this other guy says, nope, they can't go in, and I go, why can't I? And the sheriff goes, why can't he? He goes, it's condemned. I'm like, you can't condemn a building on site. We're properly licensed. All of this craziness went on. It was just crazy. So we ended up going to the FBI because the FBI busted this bribery ring that city attorney was saying, oh, I concede this looks like it's associated with it. So we go meet the FBI. Yeah. And the FBI guy says, and what's funny is Zach is Caucasian, and it's not that I don't listen to him about shit when he's trying to talk about inner city stuff, but I don't. And Zach the whole time was saying, dude, I think this is just a scam. I think maybe we should just let them take weed and they'll leave us alone because that's what they're doing. They're shaking out all these businesses. I was like, get out of here, dude. That didn't happen. That's crazy. So we're meeting with the FBI guy. He says, well, here's the story. This is he says, this is an ongoing criminal enterprise headed up by Compton City Attorney Craig Cornwell, and you guys were just in the way. You weren't paying the tax, so other people don't have to pay the tax. I looked over at Zach. I was like, sorry, guess you were right. It was that crazy. And the FBI guy says he says this has been going on for years. And Craig Cornwell, the city attorney, heads it all up. This is literally what we're fighting, and it's one of these moments where even when we get close to getting it resolved, there's no victory because they would have gotten away with this but for the fact that luckily I've tried multiple cases. I have some money and I'm just not going to let you run me over because I'm a regular dude. And I remember my father working hard to keep his business. And it's all for me in many ways. It's been this thing of you're not going to treat regular people like shit just because you think you're better. And it's just been this crazy process, and maybe things are turning, maybe we're getting to the point, but my God, it's incredible. It is. We took the deposition of the guy who closed us down, who they literally took him. He was a city inspector. They promoted him to director of licensing, which you have to have a college degree and stuff like that. Took the city inspector, made him director of licensing, which you can't have. You have to have a college degree. Literally must have a college degree, preferably in engineering. This guy doesn't have a college degree. Doesn't have any college degree. They make him director of licensing. He shows up to our store, says we're condemned, closes us. He has been Compton's director of licensing or interim director of licensing for 4 years. His total compensation is $185,000 a year. He's been paid roughly $800,000 since he closed us down. Compton has closed this summer. They closed the parks and recs because they didn't have any money. This all has been going on, and no one has really done anything, including the judges, and it's just been incredible. And it's like, how, if it wasn't, this is just luck. But we took the guy's deposition who's been promoted. I said, how many marijuana businesses have you closed in Compton this year? He says 100. I said 100? Because there were like 8 or 9, and we're the only legal one, and we just wanted to let them come in. And so I said, you closed 100 marijuana businesses this year. Yes. How many search warrants did you obtain? 0. Closed 100 businesses without a single search warrant and 1 inspection warrant, which he says is what they use for us, which we know is fraudulent. Yeah. So they closed down. This is videotaped on the record. They closed down 100 marijuana businesses. And what they do is they show up, and this was the scam, is they show up, the inspectors come in, they take all the marijuana and all the cash, and they leave, but you get to operate. And so we had a doorman named African John, and I think African John was Jamaican. But he goes, yeah, whatever, yeah. But he goes, hey, man, just let him take it, man. And he doesn't say man, but hey, man, just let him take it. So I'm like, why? He goes, that's what everyone does. They just take it, you operate. He says, that's why they call around, because on a Friday and Saturday they'd raid. And so they'd call, hey, they're raiding. And so you took all your cash and hid all your good weed, and they came in and took it. And we're like, first of all, they're not coming in because we're legal, and I'm not giving them $50,000 of weed. And secondly, that's the craziest thing I've ever heard. Yeah. Buddy of mine videotapes one of these raids a couple weeks later. We're watching it, and I'm like, why are the sheriffs over here and the people walking out with the weed are inspectors? And my brother, who's a criminal defense lawyer, says because this is not a legal raid because only sheriffs could take it, and they're over there because they don't want anything to do with what's going on here. And so at one point in time when we met, I called the old director of license in Compton, a guy named David Dent, and said, we're going to the FBI. I'm tired of you people just harassing us. We're going to the FBI. He shows up at our store the next day, a Sunday, and says, I can tell you how to stop the guys who show up in the vans and take the marijuana and the cash without a search warrant. I can tell you how to stop them. This has been going on in Compton for so long. It's just multiple people know about it. No one's worried about it. And they're taking, if you rated 100 marijuana businesses in a year, say you got 20 pounds of weed, it comes out to like 15, 20 million. What's 40 pounds times 20 pounds times 3,000 is what? 6,000 times, wow, $6 million. That's what this criminal enterprise was going. It's going on in Compton as we speak. And that's what's so crazy about this thing. So that's what we were working on. And it just brings it home for me. And it's, again, one of the reasons I do this podcast is that regular people, the system is so set up to screw you that it can be what the FBI, and the FBI agent was great. This guy, Todd Carter, he was cool. He's great. He says, hey, I can't tell you what we're doing, but he says, this is an ongoing criminal enterprise. You guys should be careful. But it's amazing that they've gotten away with this for so long. And now, even in our case, they now admit that, yeah, maybe first they said that Compton never allowed marijuana. We're like, it's because your ordinance didn't work. They changed their ordinance. We met with them in December of 16th. They changed their ordinance in January of 17, a month later. And the guy called and said, we changed our ordinance, so now you guys are illegal. I said, no, actually, you just grandfathered us in by changing your ordinance while we were legal. But they now admit that, and they admit they didn't have this inspection warrant, and we're still getting bent over by the judge because it's just like, well, maybe we can continue it. It's been 4 years. 4 years they show up to our place, destroy it. And my point here, and this is what's so troubling, is that regular people, just ordinary people trying to do their own thing, it's all rigged against us. It's rigged against everybody. Even in our situation, it's just lucky that I guess it's lucky that this happened to me. Thank you. But it's discouraging. I remember one day, and this is just when marijuana was starting. I remember there's this old African American couple, and they had waited like in front of the store for like an hour, and I got there later because I was there late. And someone said, "Hey, that guy's been waiting for like an hour for you." And I go, "Hey, what's going on?" It was this old African American guy and his wife, and he said, "Mr. Fletcher," he said, I'm going to cry. He said, "Me and my wife we just retired from the post office, and we have about $400,000 we want to invest in a marijuana business, and I think this is something that we could do. It makes sense. Can you help us?" And it was sad because this was at the time where people just saw marijuana. It was a doable business. Now it's just changed. You need millions of dollars, but then it really was. And I had to say to this guy, I said, "Listen, it took us, we fought with Compton the whole time." I said, it's a hard thing to do. You don't want to waste your money." And he said, "Oh, but people say they can help us. And I'll give you my money." And I said, "Listen, I don't need your money, number one. But two, this is not where you should put your retirement money. It's too risky. It's too precarious." And I remember the guy just looked at me, and I can tell he thought I was lying to him, like I didn't want to compete with him. But it was just like, this isn't what everyone tells you it's going to be. Yeah. And we're lucky to be here. But it's so weird how, the powers that be, the government, the corporations, the corrupt justice system, and they don't give a crap about regular people. And I always think about that old couple, and it's just like, don't put your money there, man. Don't do it.
So, have you ever seen Training Day?
Of course I've seen Training Day.
It's basically Training Day.
Hey, you ever had your fudge packed? But you know what's funny is it really is kind of Training Day where you're just
that's what it sounds like.
They're
taxing you.
Dude, it was so bizarre, and I couldn't understand it because it did not make sense to me that would be so blatant and so, but it was just open. And the FBI guy was like, yeah, he talked about Craig Cornwell. He said they had a clerk for the city of Compton that over 5 years, he walked out of there with $3.8 million over 4 years in cash. That means that he was stealing like $70,000 a month, a week, some gigantic number in cash, and no one knew it. Well, that's impossible. It's just a gigantic criminal enterprise. And what was the weirdest thing is it was these inspectors. And when David Dent, the city, the chief building official who left, his last thing he did when he was there, he said, "I'm not getting indicted for these guys and you guys are legal," and turned and walked away. David Dent's the one who said, "I can tell you how to stop the guys in the vans that show up and take the marijuana cash without a search warrant." Those inspectors worked under David Dent. Everyone knew about it. And it is Training Day. Maybe that's better. Yeah. It's just Training Day. And you're like, oh, shit. I mean, it's crazy. It's so obvious. The white Jewish cat got it, and I just missed it. Dude, I'm from South Central. You don't know. Zach's apparently
Steel
right.
City Jew was on it.
Man, it was crazy. Anyway, it's important for us to recognize that, man, regular people matter. It's when you look out in the world today, I always tell people this. Tell me the last time a regular person won any legal dispute, any issue. You can't name one. It's just regular people get crushed every day. A judge could step in and say, yeah, this is wrong. I've heard enough. This is wrong. But what they do instead is they always take the side of the corporations, of people with money. And it's disturbing. It really is disturbing. And one of the reasons I thought it was so important to talk about multiculturalism is because we could help ourselves. We have to, if multicultural people, if we work together and say, hey, we got to understand this thing can go sideways, but if we work together, we can do something, we'll be able to do something. Which really brings me to what I really want to talk about today. Three big things. There's this young girl named Ariel Young. Ariel Young I think she's 5. Ariel was hit by a drunk driver. Well, he's drunk and on Adderall. It was on February 4th, Friday before the Super Bowl. young club member girl. She's beautiful. We'll put a video up. We'll put it up. You'll see it on this video. And she was asleep in the back of a car, and a guy named Britt Reid, who is the Chiefs' assistant linebacker coach, left the Kansas City Chiefs facility drunk, high on Adderall, hits this girl's car. She is literally in just a continuous vegetative state. She's a beautiful young multicultural kid. She's never going to walk. She's never going to talk. And this Britt Reid, who again is Andy Reid's son, he was on the Chiefs staff. This happened in front of her mother, in front of her uncle. They're literally pleading for her to get out of the car. It is a tragedy. It is a tragedy. The Britt Reid is Caucasian. He seems like the type of guy you would want around an organization. Like, here are some of his qualifications. In 2007, he was sentenced to 22 months for gun and drug charges. So why would he not be on the staff of the Chiefs? 7 months later, he was convicted. He was caught with a instrument of crime, which is a gun, and possession of controlled substance. His drug of choice was heroin then. So he's moved up now. Now it's Adderall and booze and driving. But 7 years ago, it was heroin. His brother died of a heroin overdose while Britt Reid was in the house. So it seems to me that he would certainly be a qualified candidate for any NFL team.
But we won't let the players smoke weed.
Yeah, can't let the players know. That would be wrong. Wrong. And whatever you do, don't say police violence is bad. But if you're Britt Reid, you can literally, he was drunk. This is what's crazy about this. Happened 2 miles from the Chiefs facility. They're literally getting drunk at the facility. This dude, the coach's son, who's a former heroin addict, former 3 DUIs, I think, carrying an unlicensed gun. This whole situation was, he was so high, he pulls out his gun, he's pointing it at people. He then gets arrested again for violating his probation. More drugs. He gets another DUI for controlled substance, possession of a controlled substance, and possession of drug paraphernalia. He's a drug addict, a full-blown drug addict on the Chiefs staff, assistant quarterbacks coach, almost kills a 5-year-old, hits her, she has a little brother who was hurt. This happens. The police get out. His eyes are blurry. He says, here's why I find it funny, because we laugh at everything here, even horrible tragedy. He goes, I've had 3 or 4. If it's not one, you had 3 or 4. Damn, dude, that you're just admitting like 12. It's usually I had 1. No, I had 3 or 4 drinks. He said drinks. He gets out. He says, I'm on Adderall. He goes, it's a prescription Adderall. Had 3 or 4 drinks. Eyes are blurry. Smells like booze. He puts a kid. She literally leaves to the hospital in a coma. He's not arrested. He's not arrested that day. He's not arrested the next day. He's not arrested after the Super Bowl. He's not arrested for the rest of January. He's not arrested today. So this happened on February 4th. What's this, March? So it's been 37 days, 38 days. Guy, drunk, drug addict, criminal, almost kills a 5-year-old. And I don't mean this disrespectfully. As a parent, it probably would have been better, because it doesn't look like she's going to wake up. She'll wake up, but she can't walk, can't talk. And he has not been arrested. He's not been charged. And the Kansas City Police Department says it may be a couple months before we can even charge him. This is the most outrageous. I mean, this is the epitome of duplicitous double standards that apply. Literally, Colin Kaepernick, club member, leading an amazing political, social movement that said police violence has to stop. He's kicked out of the NFL, is never coming back. And Andy Reid's kid, who's a multiple drug-using drunk, and And I'm a drunk. I went to AA I haven't had a drink in 20 years. I'm a drunk too. I don't even mean that in a bad way. This dude is a ugly drunk, multiple DUIs, multiple drug arrests, gun arrests, charges. He's still on the Chiefs staff. He did not get cut by the NFL. The NFL did nothing. They've taken no steps against them. They've done nothing against the Chiefs organization, and against the assistant coach who almost killed a 5-year-old girl, a beautiful interracial girl who is now in a persistent vegetative state, which means she's going to lay in a bed for the rest of her life. Nothing's happened. Zero. Give me a break. It is appalling. It is offensive. It is outrageous. Nothing about the Chiefs. Nothing about the ownership, the management, nothing. But you let one player, and again, I don't want to get into domestic violence. The Caucasian dude who played for the Seahawks, who punched his wife, it was horrible. Club member, this interracial relationship, it was horrible. But here's something else. He has schizophrenia. He has medication. He has to stay on his medication. They trashed that dude. They treated him so horribly, and I'm not defending him, but I'm saying that mental illness is a big issue, and ignoring someone who is off their meds is unfair. Yes, what he did was horrible, but he had a diagnosed medical condition, and the NFL trashed him. But Britt Reid, the heroin addict, the dude who's shooting up heroin with his brother when he dies, who pulls guns on people, who gets in 3 DUIs and puts a 5-year-old girl in a persistent vegetative state, nothing. Not one thing. He was allowed to resign from the NFL. They've not banned him for life. They've not done. Josh Norman, the wide receiver, who has anxiety. He smokes marijuana. He has diagnosed anxiety. Cannabis is amazing for anxiety. He's been kicked out of the NFL 4 times. Never for anything other than smoking marijuana for his anxiety. This dude, the coach's son, the heroin addict, the drunk, goes out and almost kills a 5-year-old, and the NFL does nothing. That the players' union should be ashamed of themselves. This is the worst double standard I've ever seen, and nothing happens. Nothing. The greatest quarterback in the league is a multicultural club member. The number of multicultural athletes, the number of multicultural athletes with children, the number of multicultural players who are in multicultural relationships, it's got to be 20% of the league. And we should say something. This multicultural girl is in a persistent vegetative state because of a drunk drug addict. And his father let his drunk drug addict son get drunk at the Chiefs facility and leave and die. Andy Reid, a coach, runs that whole organization. They are getting drunk at the Chiefs practice facility. He almost kills a 5-year-old, and nothing's happened to Andy Reid. Nothing's happened to the Chiefs, and this piece of crap, drug addict, Adderall, everything, not charged. Give me a break. Could you imagine who was the Chiefs guy, wide receiver guy? And he said something horrible to his kid. That's why I'll smack you or something. They investigated that. They spent weeks. They suspended him. If saying I'm going to give you a whipping to your kid, which is stupid, that gets you suspended. Being drunk and high on drugs and almost killing a 5-year-old, that doesn't get you suspended once. Then there's the Chiefs running back that shoved his wife down. He's kicked off the league. This is worse than shoving your wife. First of all, your wife should divorce you because she should divorce you. This is worse than any of that, and nothing has happened. Zero. He should be in jail. He's not been charged. He's not spent one second in the police custody. Nothing. And nothing to the Chiefs. One of the greatest, owners in the league, really. But you'll let the drug addict who has a conviction with a gun, you'll let that happen. Oh, and by the way, how's the Chiefs assistant coach who can't get hired? What's his name? Bieniemy. African-American dude, literally can't get hired. Nothing happens, but the NFL's fair to minority players and coaches. That's outrageous. That is outrageous. Patrick Mahomes, who's an interracial, he is half black, half white. He's the quintessential multicultural person. Patrick Mahomes, you should be demanding that the drug addict, drunk, who almost killed the 5-year-old girl, who put her in a persistent vegetative state, you should be demanding that that person never step foot in an NFL facility again. Because remember, the NFL cares. The NFL cares. That's nutty. How much more time we got, Mark? That pissed me off.
We can keep going. We're at 45.
All right. Here's the other one. I mean, but Ariel Young is this. Look her up. She's a beautiful kid. My brother knows her family. That's how I heard about it. It's a tragedy, and it's just appalling. I assure you that if Ariel Young were a blonde-haired, blue-eyed, young 5-year-old, I assure you, and the driver, let's say it was the driver, the coach, he was a coach and he's African-American, pretty sure he would not be driving around, doing nothing, not charged. This is a tragedy what happened to this little girl, and what makes it worse is her family every day has to wonder, why is this person not being charged? It's wrong.
Yeah, it's just the fact that, like, you can bump into this guy in your neighborhood.
Oh.
There's nothing keeping you from just, like, bumping into him at McDonald's or something.
Yeah, and he pulls out his gun and says, I'm going to shoot you. I mean, I know drug addicts. I mean, drug addiction's an ugly, ugly thing. Yeah. He's just a full-blown drug addict, and his dad, the coach of the Chiefs, lets him do it. Just lets him do it. It's ugly. This guy should be miles from any facility, and yet he's there. And what's crazy is they're getting drunk at the practice facility. It's less than a mile from where he went to where he almost killed Ariel. Getting drunk. If you are so, and he clearly passed out. If you are so drunk, and it's in the afternoon, 4:00, if you're so drunk, you're passing out. That's your employer. Not only that, it's your father. If my kid had a drug problem, the last thing any of them would do is drink it. But Andy Reid's, it's okay. Fine. Don't worry about it. There's plenty of interracial kids around. The other one I want to talk about, Bruno Mars, because we're back to this thing again. Have you seen this week?
Is there controversy?
Oh, yeah. It's, well, let me read it to you. According to writer Seren Sensei, Sensei, Bruno Mars, quote, plays up his racial ambiguity to cross genres. He is exploiting black culture. He's usurping black culture. First of all, Bruno Mars is Dominican. His mother is Filipino. His father is an Ashkenazi Jewish person, which is, give it to the Ashkenazi Jewish community. They've got like four
making it happen.
That they are, dude. A bad baby. Yeah. Ashkenazi Jew. Bruno Mars. You can be Ashkenazi Jewish and be from Puerto Rico. Yeah. And be for the Dominican and be of color. And that's what's crazy. So this chick is talking about writer Seren Sensei. She's this. Go look her up, dude. It's nutty stuff. Oh, yeah. She was saying, if you're white, all you should say is, I come from a racist group and that's all you need to know. And it's just nutty shit. And so she's attacking Bruno Mars because he's taking over black culture. And it's like, what are you talking about? Here we are again. And the other part of this, and we can do this whole preaching thing again, but it's like you have real media outlets giving these people coverage. Bruno Mars says, well, man, dude, I always try to give respect to the black community, things like this. Yeah. But he is his own community. He's multicultural. You don't have to answer to it. Seren Sensei, that's like first of all.
That's a pretty cool name.
Yeah, really? I mean, that'd be a good porno name, though. Seren Sensei. No, it'd be better. It's either a video name or porno name.
Here's one thing I will say real quick. I've met the producer who produced his whole last album, and the guy who's the guitarist on that new song she's talking about. They're all black dudes.
But
that's his band, his family. Like, that's a part of music.
but it's not just a part of music. But you can do music and be Caucasian. You could be Asian. You could be what these people want to do is they're literally, so you're saying that if whatever black is, so other people can't do it. If you apply that same rule, then African-American actors can't play white roles. Yeah. You can't, but this kind of stuff is nutty. Yeah. Bruno Mars is a multicultural person. His history, his genetics, we're applying this genetics test. I looked her up. She's not the darkest sister. So apparently you can attack we're back at this again. You can't do Bruno Mars. I mean, if you look at it, it's an assault on multiculturalism. I mean, it's literally. So this dude, his father's a musician. I think his mom was. What was she? Well, I know Bruno Mars' father's a musician. His uncle's one. This dude plays blues and R&B and hip hop. He is hip hop 7 years ago. And now he's being attacked about black taking over black culture. It's just nutty. You got a picture of her?
What's her name again?
Seren, Seren Sensei. I mean, it's just, I read this and I was like, well, and here's the good thing is apparently they're paying attention to us because the 3 shows we've done on people attacking multicultural singers, those are multicultural women. So now they're attacking multicultural dudes, so we're making progress. You have to admit, Marky. He wasn't even listening. He's just fucking shit. She has some of the craziest quotes where she's just like this, white people are bad, interracial people are bad, everyone's bad, and pay attention to me because I'm saying Bruno Mars is a bad dude because he's plays up his racial ambiguity to cross genres. Well, doesn't racial ambiguity mean that you're from different genres? Is that or maybe he's only allowed to do Jewish Ashkenazi music and some Filipino music. So what can he do? Yeah. Apparently you can't do anything. Do you see her? See her quote? That's her. Look, she's an interracial. She's not. Yeah, she's. You know what she is? She's a nut, dude. She really is. I mean, it's Bruno Mars. So here's my question: what's the threshold that if you're a person of color that you can do what you call black music? What is black music? Yeah. You know what I mean? Chuck Berry doesn't do black music, I'm guessing then, or I mean, it's just what does that mean, dude? Yeah. What does that mean?
I just think about like apparently other people aren't allowed to partake in black culture, right? But we're all allowed to sing "Eye of the Tiger." Oh, cult classic.
Now that's outrageous. But you know what's so funny? But it really is. Well, what are you people saying? And I mean that. What are you people saying? Yeah. So there is this particular area that only you can go into. So no one else. So other people are segregated from this particular area, but you're not. So there's black area only and white areas only. I mean, you see what I'm saying? It's what you're suggesting is we go back to Jim Crow, and it's the same type of thought process. It's anyway, Bruno Mars, one of the greatest multicultural performers. Love you. Don't listen to these nutty people.
Here's another thing too. The dude, he did that song in collaboration with another artist whose name is Anderson .Paak. And he's like African American and Korean, and he has a Korean wife as well. So it's like this is a whole multicultural.
Yes, so
it's not just.
So like, what's the name of the song? So we like Anderson .Paak and Bruno Mars, and and it's all multicultural people. So, but watch out for Seren Sensei because she's going to say you're a racist. Is this colorism too or no? This is singerism.
Actually, it might be on her behalf because she's looking at them like, okay, they're not black enough to be able to sing this song. Like, you're not allowed to make soul music unless you're like, I don't know. I've never seen Bruno, like, if Bruno Mars came out and was like, all right, I'm gonna put on like a big old 70s like.
But you know what? He would put it on and look good. He would look good though, wouldn't he? Dude, he'd be like, oh yeah, right. Man, you said, but what's crazy is it really is this idea of these people who claim that they're, these community activists, the premises that they're putting forward are horrific. So only certain people of certain skin tone can do certain things, and no one else can do that. Well, what does that mean? What if that applied to just policemen?
Yeah.
Then they want to. It's crazy. But again, this is why this multicultural thing.
Here's the two dudes.
Let's put that up. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those guys have there's no racial anything to them. That they're quintessential multicultural performers. Yeah. That's us.
And it's not like they came out like dressed in any sort of fashion.
But they could.
I'm going to be black.
Yeah.
Today.
Yeah. But here's my point. What is black? I see you get to this
color,
thing.
Not a race.
Yeah. And it's like, what are you talking about, man? It's just, and it's just this idea when ignorant people say things, they end up being ignorant. I don't want this rule to apply. If Saren Sensei wants to live in a world where she gets to say who's black and black people get to do this and white people get to do that, if she wants to do that, that's called South Africa. Mm-hmm. That's what that's called. That's called the Jim Crow South. But again, this is why I always talk about it. We as multicultural people, we need to call this out. This is nutty. This is nutty. And it's not just nutty for Caucasians or African Americans. It's particularly nutty for us because, again, we have these people who are not as successful as the people they're criticizing, saying these successful people they're criticizing are racist because the unsuccessful person over here says you're racist because you're more successful than the unsuccessful person who's dictating who is or is not black enough. Here's what I say. Bruno Mars is multicultural enough. We love him. He's great. Buy his music. Meghan and Harry, did you see that this week? Man, that was crazy, dude. I was just like, what's funny is that it was deep. I was like, man, dude, this is some serious stuff. I didn't even know how to process it.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I was just like, wow, fuck. But you know what it really is? Again, we are multicultural. You just don't. If you're not raised with nuttiness, it's hard to see. And it's like when they were talking about them asking, is the kid going to be too dark? I'm like, what? Huh? What? Yeah. What?
That is one thing I will say, though. I was listening to a podcast. I'm a huge fan of him. And the host of it, he was just saying, hey, if all of you believe that it's the royal family is the only group of people that is asking that question, you are out of your mind.
Oh, and by the way, and it's a great point. And I actually heard someone talking about that too, saying a lot of people have that conversation.
It's a very common thing.
But what's funny though is what it is, and I believe that. But if you're from a multicultural family, you're still like, oh, it's like something horrible, but you're like, oh, but that happens.
Yeah.
You know what? And again, but man, they were bothered by that. I mean, they were bothered. Shit, I think she was scared. And Harry's just like, it was crazy, man. But what's cool though is even the old Queen of England and her husband who said some nutty stuff, Harry was like, oh, it wasn't my grandparents. It's like, damn, who was it then? It's progress though, man. It's what I liked about it is that it brings issues to the forefront. It's interesting, but I didn't really know how to process it. I was like, man, this is, it's weird,
Quick question.
Yes. Killer.
Why is there a royal family?
Well, because there's
in 2021.
Man, they do. Britain loves the royal family too, man.
Do they?
Oh, I think so. They pay.
They own a bunch of real estate.
Well, here's my question: here's a better question. Why is it that a British royal family can own everything and a Saudi Arabian family can own everything, but if the king of Nigeria owns shit, they're like, oh no, man, you don't get it. You're going to prison. No, that's just. I don't know. They like that. They like the queen.
If I lived over there and I had to pay taxes and that went to a royal family that didn't do anything, I'd be pretty upset.
Oh, dude, it's a riveting idea, and the compensation they get is significant. Yeah. But if you ran in Britain and said, or England, or I guess it's Britain, and said, let's get rid of the royal family, I think you'd get pummeled. You'd be sitting next to Andrew Cuomo. He's rubbing on you, going, "Hey, what do you think Andrew Cuomo's worst pickup line is? Hey, you dig old white guys?
Hey, I can get you in $10 by AARP benefits.
Oh, this has been a Mark Samuel Media production in conjunction. I did that good. Mark Samuel Media production in conjunction with the Laugh Bureau. Thank you. We really, really appreciate you guys. Thank you. Go Bruno and Siren Sensei.